NASA has worked with educators, but there is a group of science educators at the National Science Teaching Association who are particularly getting involved with libraries and with the project I outlined in my talk. And so we want to talk a little bit about the work that the Moore Foundation is funding through the National Science Teaching Association. And Dennis Schatz, for those of you who don't know him, is a long-time veteran astronomy educator. His activities have been used all around the country. And he is, we believe, the first astronomer ever to serve as president of the National Science Teaching Association. And so this is his contribution, and he's really sorry that he can't be with you guys this morning. The next slide. We have received funding to train 275 science teachers around the country through the National Science Teaching Association, and also to develop a web presence about the eclipse. The first call for such solar eclipse partners through NSTA had to be shut down. The website had to be shut down after 4 hours, because in just 4 hours after we announced it, we got double the number of partners that our initial grant could use. So then we went back to the foundation and we got double the number, even more than double the number of teachers funded. And so now we have room for a few more to fill in the 275. The next slide shows you what we asked the Eclipse partners to do. We asked them to partner either with a library or community organization to do at least 2 public programs to make sure that they convey essential information about local circumstances, safe eclipse viewing, and a little bit about the science of what causes solar eclipses. And they need to provide not just these public programs, but also information to other teachers in their school and their district, and particularly to administrators. We'll talk about this in a minute, but many of you know that in 2017, science teachers planned for exciting activities, but then at the last minute, the administrators began to worry about insurance risk or other factors and absolutely forbade the students to go outside and deprived them of the eclipse experience, even in places where the eclipse was total. The next slide shows you a few examples of what teachers are already doing at the Friends Central School in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. The students and the teacher have set up a Friends Central Moon Shadow team, a pretty sophisticated website with eclipse information. The next slide shows you the teacher whom you will recognize being in front of you. And so she'll say more about this, I think, in her part of the talk. The next slide. At the Stevenson School in Pacific Grove, California, the teacher has already done 7 different programs in anticipation of the October eclipse, including the public library, through parents' conferences, at 2 boys and girls clubhouses, etc. So like Angela Speck, she's an overachiever in this respect. The next slide shows you what's happening at Paul Dukes Dem High School in Dulles, Georgia. There are plans for a wide range of hands-on activities to be undertaken by the teacher and the teacher's students. So these are just a few examples of the kind of things that the teachers are planning. The next slide shows you the specifics of this. They will host an eclipse viewing event as part of a Hidden Sun Festival, serving the whole community. They will be, they've already done an annual eclipse party at the public library, and they're partnering with their community, including doing sun viewing. Many of the educators have a sun spotter or other appropriate solar telescope, and they can use that to show people the sun, not just during the eclipse, but long before, to get them a sense of what to look forward to and to understand the sun better. The next slide shows you something from 2017, but it's happening a lot this time too. A number of students have gotten money from the school or from the parent-teacher organization to purchase an extra supply of eclipse viewing glasses, and they were able to sell them or will be selling them at a small profit to benefit the school or the science program. And this is something which the students take to be quite a bit of fun to be able to provide these glasses, and they often sell out all the glasses that they can have. The next slide shows you the effort we're doing on the web. So the NSTA has created its own Eclipse section of this website, which serves thousands of science teachers around the country. It's very easy to remember. It's just nsta.org/eclipse. And everything I'm going to show you in the next few slides, it comes from this Eclipse web section, which has a number of pages underneath that top page. The next slide shows you the booklets that have been put together. There is a booklet for teachers, a 28-page guide, which includes many hands-on activities. There's a send home portion of that we urge the teachers to send home to families, particularly before this Saturday eclipse, which will not happen in school. And then there's a special booklet for administrators that I'll say a little bit more about at the end. The next slide. We have done a number of web seminars for science teachers and have others planned before April. These are available on the NSTA website, and they provide basic information for those teachers who can't come live to a presentation at an NSTA meeting. The next slide shows you two books that Dennis and I have published. One for children. Both of these are through the nonprofit NSTA Press. There's a children's book where grandparents are eclipse chasers, like many of you in the room, and they explain the eclipse and suggest some easy-to-do home activities that families can do to understand what eclipses are all about. Solar Science is a book of hands-on middle school and early high school activities that teachers can do to help their students understand the moon, the sun, and eclipses, and many copies of these are in circulation. The next slide shows you that each of the journals, there are 3 journals from this NSTA organization for each level of science teaching. Each of them is having a special eclipse issue this past summer and coming up this month. And there will be articles by us and by Charles Fulco and other educators about how to use eclipses for learning. The next slide. There's an entire collection of materials, including those by NASA and by many of you, Pat Reif and others who are doing wonderful work creating educational resources. And you can go to that website and view the entire collection of eclipse materials. The next slide. There also is a connector in the website to our fellow organizations, including AAS, NASA, the National Informal STEM Education Network, and so on. So there are links there so that we don't hog all the intellectual space. The next slide shows you the administrator's guide to finish up. The guide is a 4-page guide for school administrators. It's a relatively easy read. We think that they have much else on their mind, so we wanted to make this concise and to the point. And we make 3 points to the administrators, and the teachers are encouraged to send this to the administrators and to make these points. The 3 points we make are, next slide. And we want to make sure that they get the information early so that they can themselves in their head make plans. And the 3 things we want them to know, the administrators to know, is that eclipses are a wonderful learning experience. They bring home to the students concepts that the national standards require them to know. The next slide. That eclipses are safe to view. We give them some background information. For example, that at the UK eclipse a few years ago, there was a good study by eye doctors, and they were not able to document any recorded cases of permanent visual loss, that the cries of people are going to burn their eyes out are probably a little bit exaggerated. The next slide then finishes by showing that there are many other ways to observe an eclipse safely, even if you run out of glasses. And I want to end with Dennis's and my favorite, which is, I know many of you know this, but make sure others do as well, that if you just take a regular home colander and hold it over your shoulder with your back to the sun, you can project a wonderful pinhole projector set of images showing you an artfully arranged set of eclipse views. And just the fact that you stand outside with a colander over your shoulder is sure to attract attention from your neighbors and friends and make you the center of eclipse learning for your community. So we encourage you, even if you have friends and colleagues in the partial eclipse zones, to make sure that they're fully equipped to share the wonderful experience of eclipses. And I believe that's the last slide. That's right. So I'm happy to have comments and discussion, and thank you for your attention.